Caleb adjusted the cuffs of his tailored navy blue suit as he stepped into the expansive lobby of the corporate office, his polished shoes echoing against the sleek marble floor. The towering glass walls reflected the morning sunlight, creating a sense of grandeur that matched the weight of the moment. This was a milestone. His first day as an IT specialist at one of the industry's leading firms. The blend of anticipation and anxiety simmered beneath his calm exterior, though his steady gaze betrayed none of it. Across the open-plan office, Peter leaned back in his chair, his arms crossed over his chest. His salt-and-pepper hair and perpetually furrowed brow gave him an air of authority, though his narrowed eyes betrayed a simmering skepticism. Peter had seen newcomers come and go in his 30 years at the firm, and to him, Caleb was no different, a diversity hire, the result of corporate box-ticking rather than talent. Peter's frown deepened as Caleb exchanged polite nods with a few employees on his way to the team meeting. The tension began to take shape during the meeting. Caleb stood, introducing himself with poised confidence, his voice carrying just the right balance of friendliness and professionalism. But as he began outlining his vision for streamlining the company's IT infrastructure, Peter interrupted, his tone sharp and dismissive. "That's irrelevant," he barked, waving a hand as though swatting away a nuisance. The room fell silent, the other team members glancing nervously between the two men. Caleb, maintaining his composure, nodded curtly and took his seat. The sting of the dismissal burned, but Caleb resolved not to let it show. Instead, he silently observed the room, noting the subtle power dynamics at play. By lunch, Caleb found himself in the corner of the cafeteria, a quiet space away from the clamor of conversations. His laptop was open, his focus divided between responding to emails and processing the morning's events. Across the room, Peter strutted in with a group of colleagues, his booming voice drawing attention. "Kids these days," Peter declared, his words dripping with condescension, always wanting everything handed to them without earning it. Laughter erupted from his group, and while no names were mentioned, Caleb knew the barb was meant for him. Keeping his head down, Caleb chose not to engage, channeling his frustration into his work instead. Yet, the tension didn't go unnoticed. 2 tables away, Jasmine, the HR manager with a reputation for her sharp instincts, sipped her coffee, her eyes narrowing as she watched the scene unfold. She had been at the firm long enough to recognize when someone was testing boundaries, and when others were subtly enduring it. Her mind began to tick over strategies to address what was quickly becoming a brewing storm. Unaware of Jasmine's watchful gaze, both men continued their day. Caleb, determined to prove his worth through action, and Peter, clinging to his position as the arbiter of who belonged in the company's hierarchy. The seeds of conflict had been planted, and the day was only just beginning. 2 weeks into his new role, Caleb found himself partnered with Peter on a high-profile client presentation. The stakes were high, the project's success pivotal for both the company and Caleb's budding reputation. From the outset, Peter made it clear who he thought should lead. "Stick to the tech stuff," he said with a smirk, his tone dripping with condescension. Caleb bit his tongue, focusing instead on delivering results. Behind the scenes, he worked tirelessly, crafting a seamless presentation and implementing innovative solutions to streamline the client's workflow. During the first meeting, Caleb's contributions shone. However, Peter seized the moment to take credit, rephrasing Caleb's ideas as his own. "As I suggested earlier," Peter said, leaning back in his chair, "we should integrate a scalable system for their needs." Caleb's stomach churned, but he chose to let it slide, prioritizing professionalism over confrontation. Tensions came to a head during a crucial brainstorming session days later. The atmosphere in the conference room was tense, the client seated at the head of the table, awaiting solutions. Caleb, calm and composed, proposed a novel idea, a cloud-based platform tailored to the client's specific requirements. The client's eyes lit up, impressed. "This could work perfectly for us," they said. Caleb's relief was short-lived. Peter's face darkened, his grip tightening on the edge of the table. "If you knew what you were doing, we wouldn't be in this mess," he snapped, his voice loud enough to make the client flinch. The outburst was unwarranted, especially since Caleb's idea had just saved the meeting. The room fell silent, the tension palpable. Caleb, his hands trembling with restrained anger, calmly excused himself, leaving Peter fuming in the stunned silence. At his desk, Caleb's mind raced. He replayed the scene over and over, each time feeling the sting of Peter's words and the humiliation of being berated in front of a client. His fingers hovered over the keyboard, unsure whether to escalate the matter or let it go. It was then that an email notification popped up. The sender, Jasmine, the HR manager who had been silently observing. The message was brief but inviting. "If you need to talk, my door is open." Caleb hesitated, staring at the screen. The weight of the past weeks, the dismissive comments, the undermining, the public humiliation, pressed down on him. He'd spent his life proving himself, but the situation with Peter was different. This wasn't about competence. It was about control and bias. Taking a deep breath, Caleb stood and headed toward Jasmine's office. It was time to confront the situation. He wasn't just standing up for himself. He was standing up for fairness, integrity, and the countless others who might one day face the same struggle. Jasmine listened intently as Caleb recounted weeks of subtle undermining and overt hostility. His voice, though calm, revealed the toll of enduring Peter's behavior. "You've shown more professionalism than he deserves," Jasmine said firmly, sliding a notepad across her desk. Together, they reviewed emails, presentation notes, and meeting records, methodically documenting every incident. Each piece of evidence painted a damning picture of Peter's condescension and calculated attempts to undermine Caleb's credibility. The next day, Peter strolled into Jasmine's office, his usual smirk firmly in place. But it quickly faded as she laid out the evidence in front of him. "We take workplace hostility seriously," Jasmine said, her voice sharp. Peter scoffed, attempting to downplay his actions, but Jasmine interrupted. "The CEO is aware of this situation," she said, leaning forward, "and he's not pleased." Peter's confidence shattered as Jasmine revealed Caleb's true connection to the company. Not just a talented hire, but the son of its largest investor. "This isn't about nepotism," she clarified. "It's about merit, and you failed to recognize it." The CEO's message was clear. Behavior like Peter's would no longer be tolerated. For Caleb, it marked the start of a workplace truly committed to fairness. Word of Peter's reprimand spread through the office. While many sided with Caleb, a few questioned why he had escalated the situation. Caleb remained calm, proving his worth through results. His innovative project solutions gained attention, and he was soon promoted to lead the next client initiative. Peter, humbled and under watch, approached Caleb one afternoon. "I was wrong," he admitted, his voice heavy with regret. "I underestimated you." Caleb looked him in the eye and replied, "I hope this is a lesson for both of us." From then on, Caleb became a respected figure in the company, not only for his work, but for the quiet strength with which he handled adversity. As for Peter, he learned that preconceived notions and unchecked ego could ruin more than just a career. They could destroy respect. In the end, the company became a better place, not just because of policy changes, but because Caleb's resilience inspired others to confront their own biases and strive for true inclusivity.